SummerSlam 2005 is our topic today after a bunch of rambling mess at the top of the show. But we're going to start the build for SummerSlam on the July 4th episode. We got Cena and Chris Jericho brawling during a highlight reel, and that's going to start the WWE title program. We've also got Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan teaming up to defeat Kurt Angle and Carlito. But afterwards of the celebration, Shawn Michaels super kicks Hulk Hogan, and we're off to the races. We've got a new program. Talk to me a little bit about what was the work that went into putting together Shawn turning heel against Hogan and the whole program itself. Was there any hesitation from either guy on either side, or did these two trust each other from the beginning and then it deteriorated? How does this all come together? And I assume that part of the lesson that we learned at WrestleMania 18 was if you're going to put Hogan with somebody, fans are going to cheer him. So he can't be the heel like we tried to make him against The Rock. The fans wanted him babyface. So if somebody's going to turn heel in this scenario, it can't be Hulk. Do I have that right?
Well, I think that in looking at it, there was an initial reaction that do you need to turn either guy? And the feeling being that, and in reality, I think there were just going to be, and there were Shawn fans and there were Hulk fans. The overall feeling of this was taking the guy from the 80s and the guy from the 90s and putting them against one another because each had their own legion of followers and fans and what have you. So it was kind of a natural, but I don't think that really you had to turn anybody. And Shawn could do heelish things. Hogan did do heelish things, and their fans forgave them, and the other person's fans despised them for that. So it was just kind of playing into both men's personalities and not making a full-fledged, oh my God, this guy's got to be a heel. Yeah, we got there, but even as we got there, I think it was still divided somewhat.
When this is first proposed, whose idea is this? And do you remember both Hogan and Shawn being receptive to it?
In the beginning, yeah, both were very receptive to it. And it was a conglomeration of the writing team and getting to this match. And it might have been Michael Hayes even that first suggested the match, best of my recollection, but it was something that everybody was saying, if we could only get to this, this could be good. Because again, you had the two heroes from two different eras.
What was the relationship like in 05 here? July, August 05 with Hogan and Vince. It feels like over the years, they've sort of played hokey pokey. They've had their ups and downs. Were they on good terms here, or did it feel like Hogan in this era still had one foot out the door at all times?
I think especially during the times that Hulk came back, that there was always that feeling of, what's the trigger going to be this time? And for Hulk and Vince, look, they had, like any relationship, they had good times and they had bad times. So throughout this, it was post WrestleMania. So you're looking at, okay, is somebody going to be upset at payoffs or anything else, or is it time to take the summer off? So you had to weigh in all of that shit. And overall, I think that in the middle of this, in the meat of this, I think that Vince and Hulk had a pretty good relationship.
It's just weird to know that, he was here before during the whole Rock thing. That was 02, 03, but then he leaves. He winds up actually doing a show with New Japan, teases like he's going to do some stuff with TNA in 03 and did the whole attack with Jarrett at the press conference. But then when he goes into the Hall of Fame in April of 05, it feels like, hey man, we're back in it. And we had that big WrestleMania moment it just feels like we're trying it again, but we're not really here for the long haul. Was that sort of the vibe you got as well?
I think every time that you tried it, you were wishing you were. You were wishing that, this is it, and we can take it to the house. You know what I mean? It's like, Finally, this is the one. Just things work out differently sometimes.
It's interesting too, because we've heard over the years, and certainly Shawn and Vince had their ups and downs, but it certainly feels like Shawn and Vince have had a much tighter relationship as a whole than Vince and Hogan. And it feels like, I don't know, this has got to be a special match even for Vince.
Yeah, I think so, because again, you look at the creations and what they meant to the company, and overall the support of the different fan groups throughout the years. There were loyalists on every single side, which made it a natural. And Hulk had that overreaching, just to everyone knew who the hell Hulk Hogan was. I think probably to this day, most people still do. So yeah, this was one of those that you needed to get while you had both of them on the books.
We talked a little bit about Hogan turning or Shawn turning heel, and you said you weren't sure that you had to turn anybody heel. Why did you ultimately decide on somebody does have to be the bad guy for us to tell this story, and it's going to be Shawn? And is there ever any consideration for it being Hogan? And was Shawn, just glad to be the heel?
I think that, again, just as I said before, as far as turning heel and what people would consider turning heel was to their audience and to their fans, they weren't turning heel. They were saying everything that was true, and they were doing what they wanted them to do. So both sides, to me, both guys, in a traditional sense, turned heel.
Well, yeah. And to your point, and we've talked about this before, but the best movie villains don't believe that they're bad guys. They believe in what they're doing. And yeah, they may have some interesting ways of getting the job done, but their motivation is their belief, which is something that they're not waking up thinking, I'm going to go do bad things today. No, they say, hey, I'm going to rob a bank today, and that sucks, but I'm not going to try to hurt anybody, but I'm doing that to take care of my wife or kids or whatever. But they believe that they're doing bad things, but they're doing them for the right reason, if that makes sense.
Or they don't even necessarily believe that what they're doing is bad as much as necessary.
Right. Raw the next week from Philadelphia has Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan make their SummerSlam match official. I mean, there was never any consideration for anything else headlining, right? This was always going to be the main event.
In our head, yes. I mean, that was, you look at that and that's a damn attractive headliner. So yes, in our head, it definitely was.
Do you think you started to have that in mind? Like WrestleMania? We've heard way back in the day, early 90s, late 80s, you would try to look at like WrestleMania to WrestleMania. But as you start adding all these other pay-per-views, it feels like you start to think about your more major ones. Yes, we've got minor pay-per-views, sort of B shows, if there is such a thing, along the way. But the big pillars of the company being, WrestleMania and Survivor Series and Royal Rumble and SummerSlam. When he comes back and you see the reception and how well he's received and it seems like things are clicking along, do you sort of have Hogan, Shawn in your mind's eye as a main event for SummerSlam coming off of WrestleMania? Or do you think that's more of a May, June type thing?
No, it was more of a June, July type thing.
Okay.
It definitely wasn't immediate. I think that with Hulk coming back at WrestleMania at that time was a feeling out period, and to see how Hulk would be, how the audience would be, and what we would have moving forward.
The July 25th Raw is pretty memorable. It's got a spoof of Hulk Hogan being on Larry King Live, except it's Shawn Michaels doing his own. Wade would clarify. He says, for the record, Shawn Michaels' comments on the July 25th Raw and the pre-taped Larry King Live spoof this week were all scripted and approved by Vince McMahon. There was no breaking from the agreed upon talking points. Michaels never planned to nor wanted to turn full-fledged heel as he entered the program with Hogan, culminating at SummerSlam. In early discussions about the match, Hogan suggested that Michaels superkick Nick either at SummerSlam or as part of an angle on Raw before the pay-per-view, but Michaels resisted the angle, in part because he didn't want to be that strong of a heel, and also because he felt the match between them didn't need the extra stuff to get over. His attitude is that bells and whistles aren't necessary given their statures in the industry, and it's their first time against each other. A lot to unpack here. Do you remember one of the ideas being kicked around that Nick could take a super kick?
I don't, but I'm sure it was. Look, there were a lot of things, but you didn't need it.
Right.
You really didn't need it. The match, the first time, was enough.
Right.
It was as simple of a build as you could possibly get. Two icons coming together for the first time. Two different eras colliding for the first time. What's going to happen?
What do you remember about the Shawn Michaels spoof on Larry King Live? Would you have been producing that, or would someone else have?
Maybe.
Oh God, help me, Bruce.
I had a hand in it. And I think that the best part to me was the ungodly layers of spray tan that we put on Shawn was just hilarious. And then I became jealous because he was just so dark and that fucking tan. God. But no, it was a lot of fun. And everything we did on it was 100% calculated and done for a reason.
Tremendous. We're going to play the audio from it because I think it's just one of my favorite parodies ever. Roddy Piper's hosting a Piper's Pit with Shawn Michaels, discussing the Michaels super kick on Hogan, but it ends with Michaels hitting Piper with a super kick of his own. Was Roddy easy to put this promo together, or is it two guys that you knew didn't have to be scripted, or what can you tell us about, working with Piper and Hogan in this era?
Well, I don't think Roddy was ever easy to script. Roddy wasn't a script guy, but at the same time, he became one that would look at what you had and try to make it his own, and did a damn good job of doing that. So you had a balancing act with Roddy. You had to write something that you knew that he could tweak and that you knew that he could make his own, and pray that he didn't go too far off into the woods. Shawn, you give Shawn the points, and Shawn's gonna get it all in for you. The biggest thing here is that the view that Roddy had of himself and his outlook is, okay, where's my program? What am I going to be doing then on the other side of this? And this was during a time that we were really trying to, for Roddy's own health, get Roddy out of the ring. And I just don't, there wasn't plans. Maybe you could have had something with Roddy and Shawn, but it definitely wasn't in the cards at that point.
On the August 8th edition of Raw, we've got a main event of Matt Hardy in his first WWE match back. He's going to defeat Gene Snitsky here, and Edge is going to attack him afterwards to keep their program building. And it also features Chris Jericho defeating referee Chad Patton because Patton counted a pin on Carlito the week before in a match against John Cena. That's good shit, man. I like it, the idea of a wrestler versus a referee. That's pretty creative here.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
That's probably Brian Gerwitz's idea.
Yeah, I didn't think you came up with anything that good.
No.
Kurt Angle is going to attack Eugene after a match to get his gold medals back, and Eugene's saved, of course, and we set up a new match between Hogan and Angle. Why would Hogan and Angle be put on free TV? Just because you didn't see it as really a pay-per-view match and it should just be a television attraction?
No, it's again, I think that during this time, you're kind of looking at television and providing the best television that you can too. And it wasn't a 20, 30 minute big television match. I think Hogan would have asked the questions like, why in the fuck am I ever in here with this guy? God damn, he hurts. But it just made sense. And it was, again, it wasn't a big, gigantic match. Well, the match, I mean, it was like, oh, hey, yes, it's a great attraction for one time. and we could have gotten to an angle and a story with them, but this was kind of a one-off nice step in the story.
You want to talk about a promo, man, go out of your way to see the 20-minute all-out heel promo in Montreal right before SummerSlam. Wade would say it's the best heel promo of Shawn's entire career. Nobody wants to boo him more than Montreal, and boy, he played into it in a big way. Wade would write, Michael played into that and seemed more comfortable in his skin behind the mic as a heel than at any time since becoming born again. Without being raunchy, Michaels was a cocky jerk again, unabashedly. And they even do a little tease where they tease Bret Hart's music in Montreal. This is just great stuff. What do you remember about this promo in Montreal?
Well, it was also the point where you looked at it and you said, okay, let's go stronger with this, because in traditional media, if you will, out there, say Larry King or whatever else, and anybody else that was doing publicity on this show, the guys are throwing jabs back and forth, and we had been pretty careful on the television show how we handled that. And then it became, well, fuck, we just need to go there. Go out and to me, I didn't look at it as a heel promo. I looked at it as the truth.
Well, and that's what's so great about it is the crowd hates him, right? So they're chanting the Na 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 song at him when he's in the middle of a promo. I mean, they're basically saying, okay, we're done with you. Go away. So he just lays down in the ring and does nothing. And after about 30 seconds, when they stop singing and start booing, he jumps up and says, now that you understand who's running this show, I'll continue. It's just really great stuff. And he even says, Hulk Hogan, the same thing I despise about you is the same thing I despise about Bret Hart, which you know that's going to get some heat here. You stood for some moral fiber that in your real life did not exist, yet you stood in judgment of me. You, Hulk Hogan, will stand for just about anything. There isn't a realistic bone in your body. And Wade would say that comment was not only meant once again to point out the fact that Hogan may portray himself as pure and good, but he's a hypocrite in reality. That comment also harkened back to Michael's suggestive Sunny Days promo years prior at Bret Hart, which was getting under his skin, of course. He concluded, Hulk Hogan, you're the biggest star in WWE history, and at SummerSlam, I want you to bring your big star. I want you to wear your boa. I want you to have your sunglasses on, and I want you to have your chin high. You're one move from your star being snuffed out. Don't ask me, don't believe me, just ask Bret Hart. And of course, more heat here. Just really, really great stuff. At this point, how contentious is the real life Bret Hart, Shawn Michaels, Hulk Hogan? I mean, it feels like Shawn's firing off everywhere. Maybe some of this, since Bret is coming back into the fold for a DVD, is okay and approved, but it's adding a lot of fire to this Hogan Shawn thing now. What's their relationship like as we get closer and closer to SummerSlam?
Let's make money. You're in Montreal. You're in a market that still remembers a finish from years and years and years ago. I mean, it was over 10 years ago at that point. And you have a guy that came out after his WrestleMania with Rock in Montreal, and they gave the guy like a 12-minute standing ovation.
Right.
So why not use all of that in this market to bring it to the surface? It's what everybody wanted to hear. There's an audience there. They want to hear that shit. And it's exactly what the Hogan faithful didn't want to hear.